What's up, YouTube? It's a gorgeous Monday morning. We got a little light drizzle, and the reason I'm excited is because, well, two things. First thing, I got my hair cut, and hair's cut. No jokes about, looks like he got all of them cut. That's like the stupidest old man joke ever, isn't it? We've got rain on the way again today, so we're gonna try to bust out this end wall and maybe even get around the corner. I don't know. We do have some overhead door framing to do, flashings. So that's gonna take us a little bit of time. We're working on the house wrap right now, and then we've already got our steel set up, so we should be able to move through this pretty quick. Hey, look at that. We've got, well, we got one and a partial piece to put up, but we got to do a little bit of house wrap here on this corner to finish. That was the end of a roll, and in order to do this little section here, we got to have this door all framed out, ready to go. I don't know. I haven't decided if I want to just like go ahead and start whipping out some steel down this wall and kind of just avoid the door for now, or, you know, do the whole like tackle the difficult stuff now, do the detail work, and then we can blow through the steel later. I don't know. It's kind of one of them days. It's a Monday. I'd rather just see some visual production. What about you, Greg? What are you thinking?
I just care about a paycheck.
Yeah, but what do you think? I mean, we could...
It doesn't state in my contract that I am allowed to think. Or can think.
Dang it. I got to update that contract. Now that this wall's up, the screws are in, we can go ahead and take a lot of these chains down. I'll leave some peak chains up, keeping the trusses from getting pushed. You know, now that this wall's here, the wind could in effect come from that end, and a strong wind could be pushing on this. So I'm gonna leave some chains up just to aid in some of that strength, because I don't have this wall on. If I had this wall on, I would not worry about it. Probably a little bit of a worry wart, and I don't need to worry about it, but the chains are very cheap insurance. They're already up there. There's no sense in taking them down. You can see the wall behind me. It never looks as big, you know, when you're back looking at it, because there's nothing to really scale it to. It just looks like any other building at this point. But that's a big wall. That's a lot of metal, and that was a lot of work. But it's done now, and I'm telling you, every time we finish one of these sides, it's just closer and closer to the finish line. What we've got is a bunch of lumber, and we're going to be framing in this overhead here. Now, remember, this is not a structural header. We're not going to be supporting weight because we have this thing up here called a structural end truss. We always use structural end trusses, and that's going to allow us to just basically frame a hanging door frame of, you know, in essence, and give us somewhere to mount all the tracks and springs for the overhead door. So what we're doing is we're taking these 2x8 uprights, since we've got 2x8 columns, and we're going to be framing them on each one of these uprights that are built into the truss. We had our truss engineer do that specifically so that they go right where our post locations are. Okay, so you can see now we've got the main opening framed out. We've got our boards that come down. These are just some like end pole extension boards, what we call them, and we've got this 2x8 that runs the length of the opening. It would be nice to have like a 7 1/4 LVL, that full length, just to make it continuous. But what we did have to do, and I didn't film it, was a couple of these posts were not perfectly straight. So what we did have to do is pull some of the nails and straighten it out. And now we're ready to go ahead and frame the inside with 2x12s. All right, first row of 2x12s going up here. And I mean, this is really solidifying this header, and we're gonna run another row on top of it. We'll stagger our joints, And that is going to give us a nice flat space for our flat stock above our door, so the door can come up and open, and the door installer will mount all of our springs and rails there. So going together pretty good. Just a big space. So there you can see behind me, that's basically the finished overhead door, header. If you don't have a structural truss, you want to do something different, like whether that's a big LVL header or an I-beam or something. But you got to also remember the overhead door doesn't actually get supported by this header. That will be supported on the tracks on both the jambs and up on the ceiling. So hopefully that makes sense. It's not really going to be supporting much weight anyway. We just want something nice and solid for all the springs and the track system to get mounted to. I've got to frame a walk door in right here. So what I've done is I've just gone ahead and I've got a line here that's going to mark out the center of my door, and I'm going to take my stabila here, plumb down to my grade board. If I wasn't lazy, I'd set up my laser, because I do actually have that out, and I will use that to frame. But for this purpose right here, I'm just going to go ahead and look at the bubble. That's pretty easy too. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go off this center point, and I'm going to go each way 20 1/8, and that will be the outsides of my door. So my good buddy Greg is running base trim, so he's already got grade set. So what I'm going to do is just go ahead and put my laser here at grade. And the nice thing is, now that I have that, I'm just going to take a straight edge. It doesn't have to be a level, it just needs to be a straight edge. Now I've got a nice level line. So that is going to be the cutout where the door will set. What I've done is I've taken myself another piece of treated 2x4, and I'm going to screw it to the back side of this this board I just cut out. Not only is it going to strengthen it, but also it's going to give me a 3-inch threshold to set my door on. Okay, so that's already firmed it up. Now we can go ahead and start building our door opening by installing our jambs. All right, so what I've done is I've got myself some 2x8 material, because our posts are 2x8. So we gotta have the same jamb thickness. But you'll notice at the bottom, I've got this notch. That is so I can set it right on that 2x4 that I put on the back side, and it's gonna set down. Now, the one thing I do wanna do, because this is gonna be very close, well, not very close, it's going to somewhat get encapsulated with a little bit of concrete, is I'm gonna go ahead and take some seal tape, and I'm going to tape off this bottom. There, so this is just a little bit of added protection. I think it's worth a couple seconds it takes to put it on there. Now, one thing you'll want to do too is make sure your wall is plumb before you start making a door plumb, because if you go to make your wall plumb after your door's been done, then you can have issues. Obviously, plumb this door jamb up. So now that I have one jamb plumb, all I'm going to do is double check this dimension, which should be 40 1/4, and then I can go ahead and transfer 40 1/4. Now, there's obviously nothing wrong with just checking plumb to make sure that you're good. Make sure you didn't do a calculation error somewhere. So just got Greg putting his square on the frame here to make sure my jambs are square. Good?
Yep.
Okay, thank you, man. Okay, so now we got our door opening, and we're gonna go ahead and fill this space in here with some 2x4 blocking, and that's going to give us that'll give us something to mount our door to, our trims to, and just give us a nice solid backing here around the door. Sometimes I'm lazy, I don't even like to use my tape measure. I just assume use the actual space you're measuring as your measuring tool. Just set it there, mark it. Okay, so that is our door frame. This is ready for house wrap, door install, and then trims and so on and so forth. Very simple, and it will be, I mean, this is a nice solid frame, pretty darn easy. So what we decided to do this afternoon is not continue working on this front wall. We were gonna start putting some steel up, but we decided it was maybe best to continue the framing that we've gotta do. So Greg is over here. You'll notice that opening right there. That is gonna be the connection to this door back here behind us. And that door's a little bit short. I think we're gonna raise it up. And that was a critical part in the layout of this building and the design, so that post bay was unaltered from our 8-foot spacing on our trusses, but lined up exactly with the existing door that the client put in for like small things like lawn mowers, ATVs, stuff like that. But this will allow him, because he's got some nice concrete in there, it'll allow him to take stuff inside and outside of this shed, which will be heated all year round and whatnot, into the uninsulated shed. We got the house wrap up. We'll get everything tacked up and finished with that, and then start installing windows and hopefully some wainscot. So I'm just gonna go ahead and pin this down at the bottom where I like it. But then I'm gonna check it for plumb, which, believe it or not, it's really freaking close. It's always a little risky when you're starting a sheet, not on the corner, but somewhere in the middle, because, and we're doing this because we don't have our walk door. We don't want to waste time going over the overhead door just to go into the walk door that we don't have. So we're going to start with the first full past this walk door, but that means we got to be perfect. This thing has got to be set right where it should be, so that when we come across to this wall and get to it, it is accurate. Now, the test to make sure that I'm close is I can look at my roof ribs way up there, and my wall ribs should line up with the roof ribs. Not only does that look good, but also my level is good and plumb. But before I get too crazy, we're gonna do a double check. I'm gonna pull a measurement off of this door up top. It should be 6 foot. I'll go up there, I'll check my dimension off the door, and then what I'll do is I'll run measurements out so that I can make sure I stay right where I'm supposed to be up at the top as I go. We got that first one where we wanted it. I got the next one marked. Greg is now marking the rest of them, making sure they all stay 3 foot on center. Because if this one is perfectly plumb where we want it, then if we mark it all out, every piece will be perfect.
watch as this rare specimen, Gregory, puts in this trim with such precision and care.
What?
Wondering what he's even doing here. He doesn't even know. Look at him. He looks lost, but he's done this a couple times before, so let's see how he does it.
I was being like a safari guide, dude, and we're talking about the wild Greg in his natural habitat.
He screws with the best of them, only during work hours, never during his personal time.
Oh, that feels good. That was definitely what we wanted to do. A lot longer than we thought it was going to take us, but you know what? We got some odds and ends to do on the exterior, but we're pretty darn close to wrapping this outside up now. So when I put this first piece on, I always notch the where the hem is, and that's where the next piece is going to overlap. Obviously, just like any other flashing detail, start at the bottom and work your way to the top. That way overlaps are always on the top side, and ensuring you don't get any water coming in a joint. Time to put on our gable trim. They've got stiffener ribs in the large flat section, which will probably make it look better. It'll take away any potential oil can. I just hope it looks good. I've never done it, so we're gonna give it a try, see what it looks like. Well, that's definitely gonna give it more of a detail, which I like. It's got more lines to it. I think that's gonna look pretty good. So once I get two pieces on, I can look down it and I can make sure that it's running really nice and straight, as you can see. So now what I can do is I can start putting all the top screws in, and then I'll come back. Sorry, it's really hard to focus on the shiny metal, but once I get this done, I can come back through and put all my bottom screws in. All right, so I'm putting up this gable trim, and I'm on my last piece here to the peak. Now, first thing that I did, let me show you if I can. Actually, I'll show you here in a little bit what I did here at the peak. But what I'm gonna do is I've got it cut to what I think is right, and I'm gonna put it up here, and I'm gonna find where the peak of this side exactly meets the peak of this side, and then I'm gonna make sure it's right where I like it. And what I'm gonna do is mark exactly where my point is. Now that is what I'm gonna cut. Come on, right where I want it. And what I did was I left this right here long, so that when I put my piece over, it gives it some good coverage. So now I'm just gonna go ahead, get this back where I liked it. I'm gonna go ahead and run the other side. So I'm gonna run the trims coming up to this guy, and I'll bring you back and show you why I did this, and then what I also did here on the top that you can't really see yet. All right, so here is the trim detail where the gable comes together. You can see, well, maybe not, but this side here laps underneath. That way, there's a nice solid backing. It's not just two miters. And up here, if you look, underneath here, it bends and goes under. So this is nice and solid. And then what we've got here is this piece of trim. It's got foam closures on it, so wind and water and stuff can't go up into the ridge from, wind-driven rain and stuff. And then when we screw this down, this will be lapped over top, not allowing any water to go through there too. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. I can't really hold the camera and screw at the same time, but I'll show you when it's all completed. Okay, there we go. We've got our trim details here. Ridge cap is getting finished screwed down. These are stitcher screws, so they're a little bit different. Let me grab. So there's the difference. This is a wood screw. Here is a metal metal stitcher screw right here. And that's what we're using here in the ribs. So this is gonna go through and grab the metal nice. It's got the washer and everything. It's a little bit bigger head, bigger screw. And the goal is to basically, stitch metal to metal. So now that we've got all the side steel up, or at least almost all of it, actually we're wrapping up one corner right now over by that side door. But I'm gonna go ahead, while Greg's getting started on that, I'm gonna go ahead and get all my corners made up. These are the outside corner trims, and I gotta cut my bottoms, and then I'll run the piece from the wainscot up to the soffit. So once I've got my piece, this is a 38-inch piece because I've got a 1-inch overlap at the bottom, and then I go up above my wainscot trim 1 inch, which you'll see. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna mark an inch down here at the bottom, and that's gonna get cut out. So what I have is a 1-inch overhang that's gonna go over my base trim. So now we'll take this over right to the location it's gonna go so I can get the marks up top where it's gonna get cut. All right, so here at the corner, I've got these notched out, and that is so it sits right over top of my base trim like so. And I'm gonna mark right where these trims are. So you can probably see this better from the back. What I've done is made these tabs that bend in, and these slots are gonna go right around this trim. And they're gonna tuck up in there. There, so once you got that on, now I'll go ahead, I'll cut my top piece here. All right, I brought the lift in, I got myself a measurement just to confirm. I already kind of knew what it was, but it's always good to double check. And I've cut my end. Let me show you my end before we throw it up. So you see here, this side here is gonna go on the side wall, and then it goes up and is angled to go up the end wall. So that's gonna tuck in there nice. See how we did. Can be a little tricky by yourself. Sometimes it's hard to see. Okay, I think we got it. And voila. These trims are a little bit tough. I've never used this trim before. I mean, I've never used this manufacturer. It's a little bit tighter than I'd like, but I think once it's all screwed off, it's gonna look pretty good. Okay, so here is my corner trim, and I don't know if this is gonna focus well, but I wanted you guys to get a glimpse, like looking down it. Now, I know it might be hard to see, but what you don't see is a bunch of ripples on the metal because the metal is laid pretty well. The corner is pretty darn straight, and you know, it's a good trim detail. So I don't know if you can see it, but that's what I was trying to show, is that it's not all oil canned wherever one of these screws are. Sometimes when you look down and where a screw location is, you see a little pucker, but we got this one looking pretty good. Those corner trims, to me, it's kind of what makes the, it makes the building look good. When everything is, I guess, relevant to each other. Like, look at the lines going up the corners. There's nothing weird going on. It's not like one of these ribs here is getting closer or further away from the corner. It's going up nice and even. And that's just a good sign of a very nice straight building. That's nice and plumb. And yeah, got these two corners done. Gonna go around to the front and see how Greg's doing. Well, we're at the end of another day, and it was a successful day. We got what we wanted done. As you can see behind me, all the soffit trims, fascia, gable trims. We've got the ridge cap on, which I know you can't see from here, but you'll also notice the corner trim details are on. And let me take you around the side, and I'll show you the last remaining bit of side steel that we got to do, but that's actually going to be with a little bit more work because we've got to frame in a connection, a little tiny building that connects our building to the building that is existing. So as we walk around the corner, you'll see where this little scissor lift is. There is still some steel missing. We just finished up where Greg is finishing up those last couple screws. And this right here is where we've got to build a connection. So there's going to be a, you know, just a 9-foot wide hallway, basically, that's going to connect to the old building. We'll have to do some removal of this old steel. I'm going to try to keep it minimal. So we're going to do that tomorrow morning, and then we'll be able to wrap up this exterior spray foam. I've got that scheduled hopefully soon. And then back way over here, we've got 2 walk doors that unfortunately we're still waiting on. Should be next week. So yeah, big building. It's coming together. And I'll be excited to get on the interior and work on some interior. So yeah, I can't get over the size of this door, 36 foot wide, but also 18 foot tall. It's just crazy. It's coming along though.